So creativity and art, it's a big part of my life, and I do class myself as an art witch. So I've got lots of these kind of snippets of time in the art studio on my phone that I decided to share, and I'm going to start sharing more of this art witchery and rambles about what I'm doing. But when I watched all of these clips back, some old like this one and some newer, I decided that rather than just rambling constantly over the top, which I do as well, that I'd also think of some value for you guys for a focus. Here we've got a box. This is a box from the loft, which was my dad's box. It was his box of Christmas cracker making things that came to me every year. He would make the Christmas crackers, and oh my gosh, and when I open this box I hear his voice, and that's what I wanted to talk about today. I wanted to talk about art making and the art of listening. And it can be anything. In this video, I'm going to show you a bit of painting, a bit of mixed media, drawing. But for you, it could be any sort of creativity. It could be cooking or decorating or gardening or photography or writing or music. For me, as a visual art witch, you can see it's actually in the art studio doing painting, setting up a new painting for the Toy Tarot. This is going to turn into my 10 of Wands painting, and I'm going to share a little bit of this painting in this video. But honestly, art witchery can be anywhere that you create. But as you create, I wanted to talk today about listening to the other stories that come in, the other voices, the other whispers, the whispers that take you in new directions and open up the creative world for you. It can bring in divination, it can bring in liminal spaces, it can bring in deity, it can bring in spirits and ancestors, like that box brought in my dad's voice. So to listen as you create, whatever that creating may be, whether it's baking bread or planting trees or taking photographs of your children. If you are in a creativity space, I think listening for the art witch is absolutely vital. And an example of this might even be voices through the objects that you're using. So we're talking animism here. My dolls are an excellent example of this. This recalcitrant little doll with her funny expression told me very clearly she was about stopping people from getting into spaces. My other channel is called Tiny Soul Whispers because they have voices that whisper to me. This is me in January, journal making. Now, I'm making this journal as somewhere to write down the stories of found objects that I'm finding. I've started my treasure walk again in 2023, walking the dogs and looking for lost and forgotten objects. I'm going to listen to their whispers. I'm going to make them into altarpieces. I did a treasure walk years and years ago when Tilly was a newborn, so 16 years ago now. And the stories began to take shape. I always say those found objects were my first lesson in divination before I'd even picked up a tarot deck. This is a journal made specifically for that walk through the woods, hence there's trees there, finding lost objects. And again, I've returned this year to practicing wax crayons and drawing repeating images of the Sheila gigs that I visited in my Adventure Tarot adventures out to Sheila gig churches. Now, the voices in these artworks are coming from that actual visit with the Sheila gig, from the tarot reading I did, so from divination cards, but also from the landscape. Everything worked together with different voices. So I think you've got spirits from the Sheila gig, you've got divination voices of decks, you've also got spirit of place coming into the mix. Lots of different voices combining. I mean, here I also got voices from research. The Sheila Nagig is called the Witch on the Wall, and those bricks are really important. Here you see the fact that the Sheila Nagig sites have all had water there so far. This at Kilpeck, it had a stagnant pool, and because Kilpeck was the place where memories of old were painful, it didn't surprise me that there was stagnant water here and not flowing water like at the first Sheila Nagig. It was a really strong voice telling me to pay attention to the poison in the water in the church nearest where I'd grown up. And then of course the castle on the hill behind Kilpeck, demanding me to stride around that hilltop with new boundaries in place, to walk the battlements of the castle, declare the boundaries, and to take up space. There was a memory voice as well of being a 17-year-old at the church, trying to hide and take up no space to draw. Memory voices, voices of the spirit of place, spirit voices of the Sheila, divination voices of the cards. There were so many voices to listen to within these drawings. So through January and February, I got obsessed with listening to voices and playing with a brand new art medium to me, oil pastels. And I think playing with a new medium, and especially oil pastels, because it's so freeing, oil pastels, it helped me to play. And I think to listen to voices as we create, it has to feel more like play. We have to understand that it's the play process and not the outcome that's important in creating as an art witch. If we get absolutely hung up in thinking our final drawing needs to be perfect, it needs to look like this, it needs to be better than so-and-so's work, we have completely shut down our ability to focus and listen to voices. So I opened up a really cheap kids sketchbook and I began to just tear and draw with torn paper and things that spoke to me about what the Sheilas were saying, boats and waves and that water and poisoned water. The Sheila's shape then became like a life raft in the water. A new conversation emerged as I did these glue pieces. And when the conversations come in, like these boat shapes, grab a pen and write it down. Always have pen and paper near, because you won't remember what it's saying 5 minutes later. On this scrap of envelope, you can see it's a piece of envelope, I wrote the voids where the boats should have been. So many voids. No wonder you've become the filler expert. And worse than that, the shadow boats that looked like home but never were. You were taught to grapple and pull yourself aboard till knuckles cracked and skin split, leaving the boat dripping in blood, the blood of hope and despair bound around each other in continual disappointment. This was raging water, where swimmers forgot how to swim and instead were taught to drown, joining the memory ghosts that turn the water to poison. So that was written on a scrap piece of envelope immediately as the voice came in. And this face, this caring face, just continually chanted, climb on board as I drew. I started to pay attention to the clock, repeating imagery that I kept getting called to, and this boundary line, that black boundary line. So pay attention as well to symbols or repeating symbology that you just get called to. There is a voice within that as well. So we've got climbing into lifeboats and the poison of times gone by. Climb into safety. These are new tangents that the Sheilas have never taken me down before. Enter the lifeboat, sweet girl, it said. It's there, the safety, always there, soft and warm when waves crash. The consuming water stealing your breath, stealing it away. Salt waves and salt tears cried like an ocean, puddle becoming lake, becoming vast seas. Horizon lines disappearing into sky. When you can't breathe at the vastness of it, know that the lifeboat of my love and safety is there waiting. The breathing space to meet seed once more, the beginning of who you were before the ocean stole your breath and whispered, drown. So this idea of drowning lessons, not swimming lessons, and that Sheila Nagig shape becoming like a lifeboat or even a voice to speak. It was all captured because I was listening and open and receptive to that voice with pen and paper next to me to write it down. For you, it may not be within a drawing, but I think whatever creativity you're involved in, you're collecting media like spell ingredients. Like I'm choosing blue here because that idea of drowning and waves and water just won't leave me. For you, it might be that you're making cookies and you do something with the frosting, or you're only called to planting roses and you research what the roses mean. Whatever creativity we're involved in, there are things that pull you in when you focus. Look at my desk, it's absolutely trashed here, but I am just lost in it. There is focus and there is listening. So if you get that call to step into creativity, go with it. You'll see here a lot of these images are kind of repetitive images. I think repeating a drawing over and over will bring its messages out, and be brave. Like here I was wondering, should I do the red lines in wool, and should those bricks on the wall, the witch on the wall, should the bricks be tarot cards? Because the tarot card readings on site were like little mini bricks laid out on the floor below the Sheila. I wasn't quite sure whether I should do it, but be brave. You never know where that brave next step will take you and where it will open up another conversation. And again, remind yourself, it's the process here. It doesn't matter if this piece doesn't work as well as the others. It's the process, isn't the outcome. What might gluing this lace and wool and images of tarot cards open up for me? What new conversation will it open up? You can see here, I'm not scared to layer. I think life and creativity and spellcraft and magic, it's very multifaceted and layered. Different correspondences layer on top of each other in life as well as in magic, and definitely in art. So here I am literally just getting an idea and laying it on top of another, and you'll see it's all covered in PVA glue, and a lot of that initial drawing, and you just see bits of it poking out there, that blue bricks, it's gone. It's completely disappeared. However, I have found that with PVA, and if you're using napkin art like I'm using here, it will dry transparent. Just trust the process. But why did I layer constantly, layer over layer? I was listening to voices. The red wall was about life paths oozing through the bricks. Which way are you going to go? Who are you going to listen to? What lifeboat are you going to climb into? It's like blood running down, like literally like a lifeblood, a life path. The Sheila Nagigs are often thought to be birthing symbols. It's about giving life. Portals. Where are you going? Follow the red string. So I put that in. The lace as well underneath, that green lace, it's kind of become sort of an indication of voids, of having bits taken out of you, but also about using the beauty of lace to form your own boundaries. And of course, this beautiful tarot wrapping paper, all the Sheila Nagig sites I visited with tarot cards in hand, sitting by brick walls, pulling little bricks. And I just love, look, the way that the tarot cards are layered in there. It's literally my experience and listening to these conversations layered on top of each other. And through this piece, a new conversation might spring forward, a new aha moment. And this lace paper as well, this is a conversation from another body of art called Becoming Lace, where I had the incredible revelation that lace is beautiful because of the holes punched into it, a bit like us trauma warriors who've made it through and out. There is a beauty in the void, within the void. I collect crochet, I collect lace, all of those things have holes in them and they're beautiful because of them. So lace for me has taken on its own whispered language. It whispers all of these aspects to me, and therefore this began to be used in the Sheila Nagig images as areas where I wanted to put new boundaries in, boundaries saying, you know, don't mess with the magic of this void. There is magic here, you do not pass. It's now no longer a void where things can get in. And you can see that's why I've used the lace to edge around. It's on the edges of things. It's a magic boundary stating that this is my magic now. This is a protected portal. So that idea with lace, and I've used real lace in these drawings, has only come about by listening as I create, writing things down, paying attention to repeating pulls to media and imagery and symbol. All of these things can hold meaning, and they hold meaning because you say they do. You say they do, not somebody else. This is your magic. It might be that 1.5 handfuls of chocolate chip in your cookies is magic for you, just like this serviette means something to me. Why 1.5 handfuls of chocolate chip? Why not half a handful? Imbue it with some meaning, like I've imbued this pattern with meaning. And then you can use it to layer magic into whatever you're doing, whether that be making a Sheila Nagig drawing with serviettes in IKEA, or whether it's the cookies that you're baking. So you don't have to be a visual artist to listen as you create. It can literally come into anything. This serviette I used because it was like a magical land that I'm not used to seeing, a magical abundant land, and I wanted to create areas of abundance with this. It was like sort of like a magic portal into somewhere completely new and full of colour and abundance and joy. That's why I use that in here, and it's got that meaning because I say it does. But those portals and the ideas of portals have only come about because I listened to the Sheilas as I worked, and I listened to these idea developments as I worked. So listen, guys, listen as you create. It's a huge and important part of art witchery, like the stars. Look, that idea of a portal to other galaxies. Wherever I wanted that meaning, that's where I layered the stars. It isn't just random, just throw everything down and see what happens. Everything, the stars, the toucans, the lace, everything is imbued with meaning, and I think that's where the magic comes in. And so it's become like an art spell. It's become a spell where I can reaffirm boundaries and create portals to exciting new worlds. It's a place where collected objects of old have finally found a home as well. In a lot of these pieces, I used broken nails from when I made my fences in my magic garden. I had to dismantle about 100 old pallets, and I knew those old nails would come in handy. As they came out, it just felt like me, like broken and having walked through hell and having been used and abused, and I was damned if I was going to throw them away. There was a beauty in those old nails that spoke to me of survival. And as I drew these Sheilas and could see these new fantastical worlds opening up through the portals, and see the hope of the rainbow which appeared over the church at Kilpeck. So the rainbow was really important. And as I thought about having created safe spaces for myself and climbing into lifeboats, I then realised I wanted to put the nails in just as a testament to the whispers that they'd always whispered to me. So those pots of old nails, I had no idea why I was collecting them, became part of this story that was being whispered into my imagination. You've survived, you've found a life raft, you've realised where the water is being poisoned, you're learning how to create portals through to something new. Use the nails. So I'll show you in a minute some of the pieces that I did using the nails, but that's another really important point. No matter what your medium or your creativity path of choice, if you can, like spell ingredients, collect ingredients for it, hold on to things. I'm not talking about hoarding, but do keep an eye out for things that you could put in boxes around you that you could use. You can see the nails have gone in on this picture, and for lots of people it might be, well, why have you got all these bits of old lace, and why have you got these jars of old rusty bent nails? Why are you holding on to all of this? And it's listening that makes me hold on to it. I listen to the message in it, what the nails were symbolising to me. They were little moments of knowing my worth, of being valued for the work that I'd put in the past, a demarcation of freedom now. And you can see those nails were actually glued on top of this piece, and you can see how fast I am drawing these pieces. That piece I used some of the patterns from an on-site drawing, so keep sketchbooks and sketches outside as well. This was the church at Kilpeck and the graveyard, and I wanted to sort of draw that graveyard on the forehead of the Sheila with lifelines running down, so death and life all represented on site with the Sheila, the birth giving channel of the Sheila, and the graveyard behind. That really struck a chord with me as well. So I noted that and listened to the whispers of the spirit of place there. I was just really keen to draw that into really quite a quick sketch here of the Sheila. But that was the whispered part of the story that went into this one. It was like, hey, there's life and death, and there's paths in between, and the paths can wind, and you can choose different paths. The power is with you. The landscape and the spirit of place was really speaking to me in this one, and the idea of lakes. So there's a black circle one side and a blue circle the other. Where are you going to place your boat? Are you going to choose a poison lake, or are you going to choose a fresh lake? There are choices, as there are red bloodlines to follow. The power is always with you. All of this was being spoken into my mind as I was drawing this. I was focusing, I was listening. It was creating new things to listen to as well. It's never ending. I think the more you create, the more you hear. my art teacher at school always used to say, don't ever look at an empty piece of paper and expect an idea to come to you. Just start working and those ideas will come. Those whispers will come. Sitting on top of the hill at Kilpeck and drawing this and sketching and taking photos started this conversation, which led to this rather wild drawing of Sheila and a gig, which I could look at and say, well, that's really very childish, like the outcome of it isn't brilliant. But I didn't, because it's the process. And then I started to grab those bits of paper and to layer those meanings again, like I said before. And the nails came out as a crown, a declaration of what I'd been through and what I would choose moving forward. And then when everything's dried and everything is revealed and the layers begin to combine, a new voice starts to come and the circle happens all over again. These areas where things layer and overlap, there's new voices in each of those areas. You could zone in on just one little piece and a whole new conversation could evolve. I think this is why my art teacher said, once you start working, the ideas will come. This is what he meant. He may not have been talking about witchcraft or magic or voices, but that's what it is. That's what art witchery is. This is magic in action. These are spells. These are spell ingredients combined to create outcomes and aha moments and a psyche moving forward and shadows being uncovered and solutions being found. This is the magic of problem solving for life, and I just love it. I'm not going back to this old poisoned water. Absolutely not. Look, there's boundaries there. All the poison is disappearing into the voids of those boundaries. That is protection. Can you see the black lines disappearing? Look, the black lines of the trees have joined in with the lace. This is imagery combining, and now that red life-giving path is moving forward. This is a spell for moving out and through and into the new. And it was wonderful to complete it. And this is where the idea of the lace and the poison falling into those voids as boundaries came from. It was these two pieces worked together and moved me forward no end. But it was through listening, through playing and through focus. And for me, this is how spell pictures work, and this is why art witchery works. The spell worked. I collected my ingredients, I focused, I put my intent in, and I listened. Spirit of place, the Sheila and the gigs, spirit voices, symbols, synchronicities, it's all there in this art spell. And so at the end of February, the voices continue and the circle starts again. The bricks on the wall are speaking, and look, there are new exotic places to imagine. Where will you imagine? Will it have toucans in? Will it be exotic and wild? Where will your wild self take you with tarot in hand? It's a question begging a new conversation. And with that, a question came to me that saw me reaching for pen and scrap paper again. Where will you place your boat? Where's the boat going to be moving forward? Look, scrap envelopes. It doesn't need to be fancy. It doesn't need to be expensive. It just needs to be full of your authenticity. So here are the Sheila and the gigs so far. This was the first picture where I realised about the water, and I was tracing out the shapes of Kilpeck Castle on this one's chest. this was the first time I realised the rainbow was symbolic, and those red lines, and the idea of the red lines as life-giving paths around the bricks on the wall and the stone of the tombs. And climb in, that call to the life raft. And I loved the way, as I began to use more mixed media, the paper began to feel like brick as well. It just really began to feel like a Sheila and a gig to touch all the senses involved. That you can see some of the writing here actually made it into the piece. You can see those boat shapes as well. The boat shapes now in black going across the face of the Sheila, and those black cutting lines, the idea of boundaries coming in. That was an old pattern paper that I used, like a dressmaking pattern to draw on, which I loved. And you've got the rainbow again. You can see the repeating motifs, the idea of the safe seed in the life raft, and that idea of some sort of exotic new land, the rainbow, hope, a promised land of something else. The old nails really touched me in this. And the bluebird as well. The bluebird, I think it's because I'm doing Sylvain's 365 yellow bricks, and we're in the land of Oz. Little bluebirds flying beyond the rainbow. The song was in my head, and the bluebird just felt like hope. But you can see through the repetition of imagery, things began to define themselves, and it was just so much fun. So what you're seeing now is the pieces I did kind of end of January to the end of February. Each piece a listened conversation from lots of sources. None of this could have been created without listening. So listening to the Sheila Nagig herself, listening to the landscape, listening to the whispers as I worked, listening to what the materials were telling me, pen and paper next to me, writing it all down, layering the magic. So it's all there. So guys, I hope that you found that interesting. It's been a really fun time in the studio throughout January and February. I'm going to do more painting hopefully next month. I do want to start bringing some toy tarot videos again. But for January and February, that's what I wanted to share. The art magic, or creativity magic, or art witch magic, whatever you want to call yourself, and the importance of listening. If you listen, you never know where those whispers might take you, and I promise you won't end up in the same spot that you started. It is quite a journey. So for me and the art magic of the start of the year, and from the Sheila Nagig in Kilpet Castle, thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.